Dogman is from writer and director Peter Hastings, director of The Country Bears and writer for Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, based on a series of children's books by Dave Pilkey, author of Captain Underpants. Basically, it's follow-up to that, and I think it's actually supposed to be written by the main characters of it. This is what the younger generation is reading now. I've witnessed a few moments at the theater in the time before this movie came out when some kids got excited when they saw the poster for this. Also, the weekend before I saw this, I was seeing I'm Still Here, left in the middle to go to the bathroom when a theater full of kids and families was letting out near the bathroom, probably a showing of Dogman. And somewhere in there I saw an actual Dogman plushie. Not a big one, a small one that was probably given out at like a school book fair or something, but it shows that my generation had Captain Underpants and now the kids are all reading Dogman. But I came in as an outsider. A little out of name recognition for Pilkey, a little off the strength of the trailer, a little because it was probably going to be the last weekend it'd be playing in Dolby before Captain America kicks it out, so why not? Either way, as somebody who knows pretty much nothing about Dogman, it was pretty enjoyable. The titular character is the result of a cop and a canine unit being caught in an explosion. The cop's head was destroyed, but his body was still okay. The dog's body was destroyed, but his head was still okay. So obviously the best thing to do is have the doctor surgically attach the dog's head to the man's body, creating a super cop who has all the best qualities of both of these guys. Can't wait for the David Cronenberg version of this. Anyway, it's unclear which of them is in control. You're not supposed to ask questions. This is a George and Harold story. They just write that whenever it comes into their 9-year-old minds. And true to that, logic rarely matters here. But you won't notice, because it doesn't leave you enough time to think about any questions unless they bring attention to it for comedic effect. It's a fast-paced experience of bright colors and sight gags. And a lot of the humor lands. It has a good animation style, sort of reminding me of the Peanuts movie or Captain Underpants where it's 3D but it's also recreating the 2D style of the source material. In this case it stays true to the style of the doodles in the kids' comics, and also a little to their writing style. And despite how chaotic it is, it still has a surprising amount of heart. Much of the second half is about the villain and his abandonment issues alongside of his bond with his child clone. This is from DreamWorks Pictures, and I think the last movie they did was The Wild Robot. Dogman obviously is not on that level, but it does have moments where it aims for the heartstrings, often with the same themes of parenthood. Yes, giving the parents something to enjoy while they're dragged here. You deserved it. You raised a kid who's probably reading books. This movie is constant stimulation, but it is still entertaining and has a little bit of heart for good measure. A faithful recreation of the fantasies of a couple fictional children. Good movie.
They walk the mean streets of the city, protecting each and every one of us. Tough guys can't scare them. Rich men can't buy them. Absolutely nothing can stop them. Well, almost nothing.
Hey, didn't I tell you to go before we left the station?
Love Hurts comes to us from first-time director Jonathan Eusebio, who was previously known for his work as a stunt coordinator on films like The Fall Guy, Black Panther, and John Wick. Written by Matthew Murray, Josh Stoddard, and Luke Passmore. It stars Ke Huy Quan in his first lead role as a former assassin-turned-realtor who gets drawn back into that old life once he's targeted by some people from his past. Yeah, if that story sounds familiar, it's because it's basically the same story as every other movie of its kind. In my most anticipated movies of the year video, I described this as Quan getting his version of Nobody. Well, it turns out that's basically exactly what it is, to a fault. Plot-wise, it brings nothing new to the table. But also, like those other movies, it makes up for that with its fight sequences. And probably since it's directed by a stunt coordinator, these fights look great. It's an action comedy, but unfortunately the humor can be a little hit and miss. I think its biggest failure is when it tries to deal with romance. It mostly just feels tacked on at the last minute, like, we need a hook to make the story stand out. We'll call it Love Hurts and have some stuff about romance in there. There's some stuff about one of the enemy's henchmen having relationship problems with a girl we never see. This could pretty much be taken out entirely and nobody would notice. And then there's a subplot that involves Quan's coworker falling for a hitman, and it's easily the worst part of the movie. Nobody involved acts like a human being. She should have called the police like right away instead of spending so much time with him reading his poetry. I think a lot of it was supposed to be played for laughs, but it's just not funny, it's just dumb. There's also a romance between Quan and Ariana DeBose, which is better because it's actually a big part of the story, but in hindsight it's a little underdeveloped. I still can't truly view these characters as a couple. But despite that, I still say this is overhated. Yes, it's kind of the same as any other John Wick or Nobody clone, but it's also not really much worse than any of them. With this, I'm kind of reminded of one of my reviews from last year, for another hated action movie from early in the year that disappointed me but I still gave 3 stars to, Argyle. This is technically better than that, but it's also less fun. Yep, unfortunately this movie could not match its entertaining trailer. But it's still decently fun thanks to some great fight sequences. It doesn't reinvent the wheel and it has some moments that don't always work, but it's a nice vessel for Kwan's leading man action star chops.